and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.
Hello, Philippines. This is Lecain with World News Jam. We bring you the most interesting stories from around the world each week. We just don't give you the news, but we tell you the story behind the news, as well as read and answer your questions in an entertaining and easy to understand way. So please join us on DZRJ 810 AM Radio Bandito TV and get yourself updated with all the interesting news of the week from around the world right here on DZRJ's World News Jam.
Watch and listen to World News Jam every Sunday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
Hello, Philippines, and welcome to the World News Jam right here on DZRJ's Radio Bandito and RJTV Channel 224 Sky Cable here in Manila. My name is Lecain. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday with me. It's Easter. We are celebrating it right here on DZRJ. I hope you have had a wonderful Holy Week celebration, whether you spent it going to church or at the beach or hanging around family. We are glad you took some time off to check out the show. We here on the show talk about and discuss news of the week, what is happening in the Philippines, what's going on outside the Philippines. Now, before we get started, the Philippine Animal Welfare Society, or 𝗏𝗄𝘄, has asked people not to accept giveaways or prizes that involve bunny rabbits or chicks this Easter. Of course, a lot of times rabbits and chicks are used to commemorate the resurrection of Jesus with the meaning of new life at springtime. But according to the people at 𝗏𝗄𝘄, 95% of animal giveaways end in the animal not surviving. And just to be aware that bunnies need space to run around and need lots of food and care and love. And when you're getting your prize from winning the Pass the Cucumber game, you may not realize what a responsibility a bunny can be. And by the way, little chicks that are pink and purple are not born that way. They're actually sprayed with dye, which supposedly can cause stress to the animal. Just so you know, cute little chicks don't stay chicks for very long. They grow into chickens and can peck and scratch and poop everywhere. Just pointing that out. So if you can have a happy Easter, along with the bunnies and chicks can too. By the way, why don't you tell Easter jokes to ducks? Because they might quack up. Sorry about that one. So without further ado, let's get to the top stories of the week. Have there been times in your life when you watch something and you just can't believe what just happened? Maybe when the World Trade Center fell on 9/11 or the space shuttle disaster. Maybe it was when Star Harvey announced the wrong winner at the Miss Universe contest, or maybe when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. Things in which you might say, is that even real? Well, this week I watched a boat hit a massive 2.6 kilometer long 4-lane bridge, and the bridge just fell into the sea. Almost looked like a CGI scene from a movie, but it wasn't. It was the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland, USA, a 984-foot container ship known as the Dolly was on its way to Sri Lanka. Two local pilots were driving the ship at around 1:25 a.m. when all of a sudden something went horribly wrong. As it was leaving the port, it started its journey. It lost power and propulsion, at which time they contacted the Maryland officials that they no longer had control of this massive ship. It was 1:22 a.m. when the ship had a complete blackout. You can see this happening on the video. Blackouts mean loss of electrical engine, loss of electricity. Now, at the time, the ship was only going 14.8 kilometers per hour, but even at a slow speed, stopping and turning a ship of that size can take miles to do. The pilot immediately ordered the rudder hard to port to keep the ship from going to the right and ordered that the anchor be dropped. He then called authorities that the ship was out of control and that they should clear the bridge. But then, just before they collided with the bridge, the lights turned back on. The emergency generators kicked in. But the generator was for the lights, not the propulsion systems. According to the officials, the main pilot did everything he could think of, but at that point, there was nothing else to do. The ship was going to hit the bridge, and that's what it did. It was as if it was like a magic trick. The bridge just disappeared. It all happened so fast. 1 second it was there, the next it was in the sea. Now the bridge, usually filled with cars. It's one of the main arteries in one of the U.S.'s largest cities. But it was late in the evening after 1:30 a.m., so very few cars were on the bridge. And supposedly the police were able to halt most of the cars from coming on the bridge. However, a few cars did fall into the 𝗪ឆ𝗶𝗄𝘀 River. But amazingly, none of those people died. However, there were 6 workers at the bridge doing maintenance in a manhole. As of this reporting, some of those men have not been recovered and are presumed dead. Neither the 2 pilots or any of the 22 crew on board died. This really could have been a major, major disaster if it was at any other time. The bridge is usually used by nearly 12 million people annually, so it's usually packed with cars. Now, this route is used by many ships. It's a major shipping lane for construction, machinery, sugar, gypsum, coal, imports, exports of automakers. Nissan, Toyota, General Motors, Volvo, Jaguar, Land Rover. Now, interestingly, the men who have died were all foreigners coming from Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and El Salvador. They were doing midnight pothole repair. Supposedly they were on a break at the time of the accident and were just totally caught off guard. Being what the water temperature is right now, it's not believed that they could have survived just maybe a few minutes in that freezing water. Now, of course, being America, many people assume this must have been an act of terrorism. Maybe the boat was purposely driven into the bridge or something like that. Or maybe it was a mad employee or a political incident. Well, so far it seems like it was just an accident. Even though it just doesn't seem possible that something like this could happen. The President of the U.S., Joe Biden, assures us that there's no evidence suggesting that it was a deliberate act or any type of terrorism. And there was a Mayday call just before the crash from the crew saying they had lost control of the ship and that the bridge needed to be cleared. The President did say the federal government would be heavily investigating this and would pay for the rebuilding of the bridge. But this is really going to be a major endeavor. First of all, they have to remove all the old bridge, which they need to cut into pieces and lift out with a crane. That could take months. And the building of the new bridge, that could take a year or more. This is the 9th busiest port in the U.S. in terms of both foreign cargo and foreign cargo value. Somewhere around $200 million a day goes under that bridge. Supports around 15,000 jobs. This is going to create a major problem in the future as far as logistics on how to get shipments into the East Coast of the U.S. and how are commuters going to get into the city now. This is going to be a real nightmare for a while. The U.S. Navy has said that they are bringing in massive cranes on ships trying to remove some of the debris. Those ships can pick up as much as 1,000 tons of weight and will have to be lifted and moved that it can be pulled out of the way. Now, 2 cargo containers went overboard during the crash. However, 56 containers on board that contained hazardous materials, according to reports, are still on board and safe. But right now, the main issue seems to be finding the people that went into the water. Because of the temperature of the water and that fact that there is tons of steel and giant road pieces in the water, it's making it very difficult for divers to safely do this search. But the big question, how on earth could this happen in the first place? How could a ship of that size lose all power on board? How could it not have a backup system to kick in order to restart the propulsion system? Also, why didn't the dropping of the anchor have any effect? Now, from what I understand, it can nearly be impossible to stop a 300-meter ship. In fact, it can take a mile to get it to stop. However, if I understand this right, if there is a crew member deployed on the bridge as a lookout, they can drop the anchor in just a few seconds and slow or turn the ship. Now, by watching the video, it seemed as if the ship power had come back on just in time for the pilots to steer the ship away from the bridge. So a giant puff of smoke came out of the ship, leading us to believe that they had regained some type of power to the engines, but we still don't know if this was just too late to make any kind of emergency maneuvers. All we know is that they knew they were going to hit that bridge, sent out a Mayday signal. For now, we will just have to wait and see what the investigation reveals. But still, the video of the incident, it's just spectacular to see something this large just drop into the sea in 1 second. Like I said before, it looked like a magic trick. But unfortunately, there was no curtain to come up and shake, and the bridge would just be right back into place, and everybody applaud. No, this was not that. But this is Eric Lecain on the World News Jam right here on Radio Bandito, DZRJ. Let's take a look over at U.S. politics. Well, the race for the presidency is officially underway. And at this point in the race, it's not really about policy or popularity. It's about the money. Raising money to make sure in the final stretch of September and October, before that November election, that there's enough cash to keep the campaigns moving at full steam, not only for running TV ads and face-to-face campaigning, but also for all the people in the field to make the campaign successful. Those door-to-door knockers reminding people to vote. Well, to get things rolling this week, the Democrats threw one of the biggest fundraisers ever. In Radio City Music Hall, Joe Biden sat down with 𝗪C_Colbert, the late-night comedian, to discuss presidency stuff. But what makes it such a big news is that who else was in the room? Two former presidents of Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. Supposedly in the 1-hour fundraiser, they pulled in a $25 million. Each ticket, it cost $250, and get this, up to $500,000. Now, 𝗪C_Colbert, who is, in my opinion, hilarious, started out by saying this is an extraordinary occasion because 3 presidents have come to New York and not one of them is here to appear in court. Now, there's some big-name singers that were performing there at the thing, such as Queen Latifah and Ben Platt and Cynthia Erivo and Leah Michelle, but if you paid that big $500,000 ticket, you got your picture taken with all 3 presidents, with Annie Leibovitz as the photographer, and an invitation to a separate reception with Biden, Obama, and Clinton. Now, Donald Trump, he was also in New York at the time, trying to use the Biden event as a talking point. He said in an email to donors, hundreds of deranged Hollywood liberals will be in attendance, and they will open their wallets to fund the destruction of our country. Together we can drown out their dirty dollars, but it all depends on how much support we get right here, right now. Trump added, remember, my campaign isn't powered by the Hollywood elite writing 6-figure checks. It's powered by you. However, right now the Biden campaign is standing at somewhere around $155 million in cash in the bank, while Trump's campaign is sitting on around $36.6 million in his account. Part of the reason for the wide gap is that Trump is using campaign money to pay most of his legal bills from all of his criminal and civil trials he's going through. But even though Trump has less money, some pollsters have Trump in the lead as far as polls go in the upcoming election, which could very well be. Many of Americans don't like Biden because they believe he is bad for the economy. Biden actually has brought the economy up in the last few months, and that's according to Fox News. However, most of the country still believes that Trump presided over the better economies, even though, again, according to Fox News, Trump lost jobs, lowered the GDP, and raised the national debt more than any other president in history. This is not based on opinion, but this massive Democratic fundraiser, and well, as others meant to change all that, as Biden has been trying to show the American public his economic numbers and show them how much better they are now than they were 4 years ago. He's also trying to convince them that the 81-year-old is not too old to be the president, and he's still up for the job. Now, it's kind of weird to see Biden, the current president, on stage with two former presidents who are both much younger than him and were also much more popular. Barack Obama will go down in history as one of the most popular presidents ever. Even now, after being out of office for many years, he is still very popular with most Americans, and Bill Clinton approval ratings were very high at the end of his presidency, even though with all his scandals, he did have one of the best economies ever, leaving office with a surplus of cash. When does that ever happen? But Biden is not that popular still. In fact, it seems most Americans don't like either Biden or Trump. So it looks more like it's not going to be who comes in first, but who can come in second to the last. In any case, this kind of huge fundraising could make a huge difference in the final stretch. Biden is putting up big numbers in cash and padding it much higher than the Republicans. But this massive gala of fundraising also comes with some controversy. Many protesters in the audience were very unhappy with the way Biden is handling the war in Israel. Now, kind of ironic that they are in the event protesting Biden, which means that they had to buy a ticket to get into the event, money of which goes to the Biden campaign. Also, many outside the venue waved Palestinian flags as a protest to Biden's backing of the Israeli military. Some were yelling, "Free, free Palestine," and "Genocide, Joe has got to go." Even some held up signs saying the Democratic Party are war criminals. And this is even though Biden has openly criticized the Israeli government and their bombing of civilians. But here again, if they don't want Biden, do they want Trump, who wanted to ban all Muslims from coming into the U.S.? Anyway, Biden did say at the event that he will keep working to stop civilian deaths in Gaza, particularly children, and that Israel's entire existence is at stake. But even though Israel is on many people's minds, Biden also reminded people not to forget the riots of January 6, 2021, the one in which almost all of the participants have been prosecuted and sentenced to jail, all except the leader, who is currently under indictment. He said this incident has made foreign leaders question the stability of the U.S. democracy, and that the democracy in the U.S. is still very fragile. But all in all, it's a good night for the Dems. They raised $25 million for the campaign in one night. That's a number even the Republicans have to say, whoa. Speaking of Republican side of the political field, Donald Trump also has an idea for raising money. Now, as we know, recently Donald Trump has been selling his limited edition golden sneakers as his new Trump cologne out. But this week he introduces something that none of us saw coming, the new Trump Bible. Actually, it's the God Bless the USA Bible, originally put out by Lee Greenwood. That's the country singer who had maybe one hit. Anyway, for $59.99, you can have a Bible personally endorsed by Trump. Trump wrote, "Happy Holy Week. Let's make America pray again." Did America stop praying at some point? Anyway, he continued, "As we lead into Good Friday and Easter, I encourage you to get a copy of the God Bless the USA Bible." End quote. But it's not only just the Bible. It includes historical documents such as the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance. In Trump's new infomercial, he said, "Many of you have never read them and don't know the liberties and rights you have as Americans and how you are being threatened to lose those rights." He said, "Religion and Christianity are the biggest things missing in this country, and I truly believe that we need to bring them back, and we need to bring them back fast." So, Trump will sell you the perfect blend of church and state in one leather-bound package. Now, obviously, this has gotten some criticism and many jokes from the talk shows. First of all, Trump has never been much of a religious person that we know of. When Trump was on a talk show, he said the only book better than his book was the Bible, and it was his favorite book. So the host then asked him what his favorite verse was, and Trump couldn't even name one single verse. He ended up just saying, well, he loved them all. But this kind of playing up to the evangelical voter on Holy Week might just be what Trump needs right now. In a convention last month, Trump said during his presidency, no one will be touching the cross of Christ, and that Christians are under siege and the country is going haywire because it's lost its religion. This, of course, makes the audience cheer. Trump even claimed in his video that he has many Bibles at home. Now, Trump is currently in New York, where he is appealing his criminal trial in which he allegedly slept with porn star Stormy Daniels while his third wife was at home with their newborn son. As you remember, Trump paid off the porn star and tried to claim the money was for campaign purposes. His lawyer went to jail because of this and will be testifying against Trump as well as the porn star Stormy Daniels. Now, this selling of the Bible has gotten some negative reactions even from the Republican side. Some have outright called it sacrilege and offensive, saying that there are lessons in the Bible that suggest that taking advantage of people's faith for money should be condemned, that it is in violation of the Ten Commandments and is very un-Christian-like. But whether you think Trump is being Christian-like for selling Bibles at near $60 and making cash on people's faith, well, there are other issues at stake here. When Trump does these kinds of things, it clearly creates the idea that to be a real American, you must be a Christian. That America was founded on as a Christian nation, and that the government should be set with Christian values. That anyone not with those values is not American. I mean, the Bible says that we should love our fellow man, but when you hear ideas like this, what it really means is love your fellow man only if they think the same way you do and follow the same God you do. But honestly, I don't think Trump looks at the divides he's building in the U.S. He's looking if one day soon he will be divided from his money. Remember, last week we were wondering if Trump could pay the $454 million civil judgment against him. Well, Trump got a little good news this week on that front. An appeals court gave Trump an extension of 10 more days and lowered the amount of the bond to $175 million, which is much better than $454 million. I think Trump can probably handle that amount. In any case, his Trump social Twitter type company, Truth Social, went public this week, making him worth an extra $3 billion. Well, $3 billion in theory. Actually, as of today, Trump's stake could be worth $6 billion, but Having something worth $6 billion and having $6 billion in cash are two very different things. Something is worth what someone will pay for it, I guess. And right now, people want to pay $78 a share for Trump's company, Truth Social. The problem is, Trump's company only produced around $3.4 million in the first 9 months of last year and lost $49 million over the span of the same time. Trump's company is currently valued at $11 billion, with a 2023 revenue of $5 million. Just to compare, Reddit, a popular site, is valued at $6.4 billion and brought in $804 million in revenue in 2023. This is why you keep seeing the news captions saying, Trump's new stock defies logic. Also, its value is right up there with Twitter and Facebook. Yet Twitter has 75 million users and Facebook has 142 million active users. Truth Social has about 494,000 active users and is currently shrinking. Its monthly active users in February is down 51% from last year. So just to break it down, if you have a car that you bought for 500,000 pesos, but the value of the car is 50 million pesos because Trump drove it. Now you have to convince many people that it's worth that now. But what you really need to do is find somebody that will really buy it. Can you? Currently, Trump can't sell his stock. Legally, he must hold on to it for a period of time to keep him from selling it cheap and tanking the company. The issue is, if the company blows through all the cash it got from going public, will the stock, or rather, what will the stock be worth then? What if Trump loses the election? What will the stock be worth then? I mean, if the company is a Twitter copy with really one main user, if Trump stopped tweeting, what would the site be worth then? In any case, he can't sell it anytime soon, so it doesn't help him raise the money for the fines in the civil cases. And finally, a criminal case that will be going forward this month is the case about paying off the porn star. It was delayed, but it will start, according to the judge, on April 15th, in which he will be tried for paying off the porn star so she would not go public with their 1 hour affair. So, knowing how Trump is, the judge has already put a gag order in place saying that Trump should or could not make any more public statements about people on the jury or people working on the case or any of the officials' families. Trump in the past has made remarks against people related to cases that have put their lives in danger. So the judge has made it harder for Trump to say or make post comments about the people that are related to the case. But as most news agencies have said, Trump will not be able to help himself. This is true, and this week Trump went after the judge's own daughter. You see, on her Twitter page, there was a picture of Trump behind bars. Trump said, "See, I can't get a fair trial." But the daughter actually had deleted that account way before it. It seems that someone else has taken the same name and has put up that picture. In any case, Trump may have violated the gag order even before the case has even started. So, what is the judge going to do? He could fine Trump. However, previously, it doesn't seem to really matter because Trump just pays the fine. He doesn't seem to care about the fines, saying all kinds of stuff, gets himself in the daily news, gets him noticed. Paying the fine makes it all worth it. So, will the judge do what many previous judges were scared to do, put Trump in jail for violating the gag order? That's what would happen to you or me if we violated the court order, but we are not Trump. Trump always has a way of getting out of these things. He's always been able to stay out of the courtroom for years now for things that have, already put his followers and his officials and his employees in jail. If for anything, Trump is masterful at testing the U.S. court system. If Trump wants to make money, he should write a book called How to Commit Crimes and Never Go to Jail for It. Now, that's something I might spend $59.99 for. This is Eric Lecain on the World News Jam on RJTV. I want to talk about something that caught my eye, or rather my ear this week. It's something Donald Tusk said. Yeah, it's a different Donald. He's the Prime Minister of Poland. He said that Europe is currently in a pre-war era. What does that mean? Now, there are not many people alive to talk about Europe's pre-war past, time before the Germans decided to take over the world. But once the war was done, it seemed as if wars are the thing of the past, something that Europe didn't have to think much about anymore. But here's what the Prime Minister said. War is no longer a concept from the past. It is real. And it started over 2 years ago. The most worrying thing at the moment is that literally any scenario is possible. We haven't seen a situation like this since 1945. He goes on, I know it sounds devastating, especially for younger generations, but we have to get used to the fact that a new era has begun, a pre-war era. I'm not exaggerating. It's become clear every day. Now, obviously he's speaking about Russia and how this is something that we all must start to realize in the world we live in today. Russia decided it wants to take over a sovereign nation. I mean, in this day and age, you don't see that really much. I mean, I guess we could look at Tibet and taken over by China in 1951, or Eastern Kashmir by China in 1962, maybe the Golan Heights and by Israel in 1967. I could even say that Hong Kong was taken over by China in 1997, but somehow the invasion of Ukraine by Russia feels different. Now, I know what you're saying. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. Now it looks as if Ukraine is moving more toward democracy and Western ideals, so Putin wants it back. He doesn't want those Western ideals on his border. But this invasion on the border of Europe has leaders very worried, especially Poland. The big question for many, if the U.S. decides to no longer support the Ukraine, and if, say, Trump were to be president, Ukraine would surely fall to Russia. So now Putin has started to very clearly that he believes that all the Baltic nations should come back under the control of Russia. And if no one is there to stop Putin and the U.S. decided to side with Putin, where does that leave Europe? Putin has said that he would not attack a NATO country, but do we believe that? Putin also said he would not invade the Ukraine. That all those troops on the Ukrainian border almost 3 years ago were just running drills. Right now, Europe is changing. Before it was Brexit that was the most dangerous thing facing Europe, but as of now, many countries in Europe are ramping up their militaries. They're starting to put money back into the military. For decades, military budgets in Europe have been dwindling, but all of a sudden now there are spikes in money being spent on fighter jets, destroyer vessels, stockpiles of ammunition, newer technologies. I mean, look at what has happened in the past year. Two of the most neutral countries in the world, Sweden and Finland, have decided to join NATO. Now they are building up their militaries. Estonia and Lithuania, who are part of NATO, are spending more than is asked for in military to meet the NATO guidelines. And what about Moldova, which Putin has alluded several times? They are trying to quickly join the European Union. France, Germany, and Poland are leading the way to build up the European military as they are rearming the continent as a whole. Currently, being a member of NATO means you must spend 2% of the country's GDP on the military. For a while, nations fell behind. However, countries like Poland are now spending 4% on military, which is almost double what NATO asks of them. Last week, a Russian missile on its way to the Ukraine flew over Polish airspace. This shows just how close the quarters are in this war. But despite all this building of its military, the Prime Minister says all of Europe has a ways to go. They need to be ready in case Russia does the unthinkable and the U.S. is not there to back them up. As Trump said, he won't be if he is the president. Last week we discussed that attack in Russia by that group of terrorists. These kind of things actually might help Putin's plight in taking back Ukraine, gives him a reason to step up his attacks on the Ukraine. And if it turns out that one of the shooters in that concert was a European or a U.S. citizen, what do you think would happen then? Putin's already blaming the Ukraine for helping the government prepare for the attack without evidence. So I understand why Europeans might be a little skittish about Russia right now. Not since the 40s has Europe had to think like this, that they have had to look at war as a possible option. And seriously, consider that in the next few years, they will have to put up their militaries to use once again, like back in the 1940s. The Polish prime minister sounds as if he's setting off some alarm bells, but the question is, who's listening? Is the rest of Europe? Is the U.S.? Is Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House? Right now, Mike Johnson is the one holding up the U.S. aid to Ukraine. Right now, Mike Johnson is one of Russia's most powerful allies. He's the sticky point in one of the most messed up Congresses in the history of the U.S. It's packed with MAGA people who seem to care less with what's going on in the Ukraine and more about what they can say or do to get themselves more clicks on TikTok. Right now, some of them are calling for the ousting of Mike Johnson because he passed a budget to keep the U.S. government open. So now the ball is in Johnson's court as far as the aid to Ukraine. Should he hold out on the $60 billion to go to the Ukraine and watch the Ukraine get pulverized by Russia to get them the help that they need and then possibly lose his job? Because to make it happen, he will need the help of Democrats. And getting votes from the Dems may mean suicide for the Speaker of the House. It's hard to believe the current boat the government in the U.S. is floating on. It's not far from total chaos over there. As of now, many Republicans don't want to give any support to Ukraine at all. The current Trump MAGA movement in Congress is one of isolationism. We just want to worry about the U.S. and only the U.S. Let the Ukrainians and the Europeans fight their own battles. But this is a tightrope for the Republicans. Some have gotten so sick and tired of the whole thing, they just quit. So now Democrats are only one vote away from being able to pass legislation. So, as you can imagine, both Putin of Russia and Zelensky of the Ukraine are both sitting on the edge of their seats waiting to see how this game of tag plays out in the U.S. Congress. And if the aid doesn't come, the war could be shortened. Could end very quickly if there's no more aid. But if the aid does come, even though Speaker Mike Johnson might be out of a job, we could keep the war going on. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to believe the world we live in today, isn't it? And this is the World News Jam with Lecain. Happy Easter, everyone. These days, crypto is on the upswing. Bitcoin is hitting crazy highs, and it seems the world of crypto is back. This is after people thought for a while it would just completely disappear. We have discussed the drop in crypto after the massive demise of FTX, one of the largest trading platforms for crypto, declared bankruptcy. The problem was not so much in the crypto platform, but actually it was more about the people running the business. A young guy that many people thought was a genius behind the world of crypto, Sam Bankman-Fried. He was worth billions of dollars, but billions in money and billions in crypto, which its value is based on its popularity, not on any kind of intrinsic value. The problem was that the real cash that people were depositing was going into Sam's personal stuff, such as real estate and private jet trips. and propping up his investment company to give the appearance of making money. The problem was, as are with most schemes, eventually people want their money back. And then the trouble begins. You see, when it comes to investing money, there are certain guidelines that must be followed, but investing in crypto, well, there's no guidelines really. Nothing was stopping Sam from just spending his clients' money. Sam was a celebrity and people were falling over each other to give him money. Well, when FTX finally came crashing down and all those people lost their money, everyone from FTX pointed the finger right at Sam. So the government came after Sam and charged him with wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. They were saying he stole around $8 billion from his clients and used the money to buy properties, make political donations, and invest in real products. Well, this past Thursday, we learned the fate of Sam. Just before his sentencing, he said, "I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about what happened at every stage." But the judge wasn't really buying it, his remorse very much. He said Sam lied during his testimony at the trial when he claimed that he was unaware until the last minute that his companies were taking money entrusted to them for safekeeping by its customers. And then he used that money for other purposes, such as personal things. The judge said he knew it was wrong. He knew it was criminal. He regrets that he made a very bad bet about the likelihood of getting caught. But then he's not going to admit anything, not during the whole trial. Though Bankman-Fried had made protestations of sorrow about his customers' losses, he had uttered never a word of remorse on the commission of his terrible crimes. So the judge needed to make a sentence. Current government guidelines in this case like this are around 100 years. However, the judge gave Sam 25 years. If he serves the whole sentence, he will get out before he's 60 years old. The prosecution actually asked for 40 years because he showed complete disrespect for his clients who lost their money. His lawyers had asked for a sentence of 5 to 6.5 years. That was Sam Bankman-Fried's lawyers, and claimed Sam had mental health issues and that most customers would get most of their money back anyway in the bankruptcy court. His lawyer said that they should sentence him to work hard to give all of his earnings away. But the judge said there's a good chance that Sam would just do it all over again if given the chance. So this sentence would prevent that. Sam has admitted to his mistakes of mismanagement, but maintained he was acting in the good faith of his clients. He said he was sorry for disappointing not only the customers, but his employees. Several of those employees have testified against him. Now, Sam will be appealing. However, he will need to appeal while he is in jail. You know, it's funny sometimes to see guys like this go to jail, to watch the rich celebrities finally go to jail. Sometimes there's a small part of us that just loves seeing someone rich go to jail, especially when they are claiming they are innocent and all along it's so obvious that they are not. And then they get 25 years. And this is DZRJ's Radio Bandito. My name is Eric Lecain here on the World News Jam. Speaking of some bad things, P. Diddy, the famous rapper, well, he's been a bad Diddy. This week, what looked like a military squadron raided two of P. Diddy's massive homes looking for something. One house in LA, one house in Miami got raided by a huge group of federal police. This seems, according to reports, to involve sex trafficking and illegal firearms possession and possibly drugs. There's all kinds of speculations going on right now as to what these raids were about. Now, me personally, I got nothing to back this up, however, is that the government is building a huge case against Diddy, and they've been doing this for a long time, and somebody tipped him off. So they're thinking that P. Diddy was about to maybe destroy all the evidence. So the judge okayed the search warrant, and two of his biggest homes were now searched. Now, honestly, you don't have to get a search warrant for one of these richest richest celebrities on the planet unless you got a really, really good reason. On the backside, there have been some lawsuits floating around, of which we have reported on here on the show. His former partner, if you remember this, 𝗪cie𝗿𝗀𝗀, filed a lawsuit against him in November for raping her in 2018 and beating her and demanding she carry a firearm and forcing her into unwanted sexual encounters with male sex workers while he watched. However, the day she filed the suit, he paid her an undisclosed amount of money. We talked about this lawsuit before. It was filled with everything from drugs and rape and guns, sex trafficking, everything that you could think of. But then there's another lawsuit just recently came about a producer named Roy Little Rod Jones. He was subject to unwanted advances by associates of Diddy at his direction, that he was forced to engage in relations with sexual workers that P. Diddy had hired. Supposedly for several months, Diddy sexually harassed, drugged, and threatened him. Then it gets even crazier. This guy's saying there's a video of Diddy and his staff engaging in serious illegal stuff, that rapper 50 Cent's former girlfriend and mother of one of his children was one of the sex workers, that there were sex trafficking parties with underage girls and illegal drugs, and somehow if you came to one of these parties, you could get access to Prince Harry. And there's another lawsuit from another girl named Joey Dickerson that P. Diddy drugged her and sexually assaulted her and secretly recorded the whole assault. Seems that she was in college and he allegedly drugged her to the point she could not walk and then assaulted her while videotaping the whole thing, then showed the video to his friends. Then there's one we talked about before in which Combs and Aaron Hall raped a girl and her friend. A few days later, Diddy went to see the girl and choked her to the point that she passed out. Then another 17-year-old girl who was drugged and gang raped with two of his associates. I can continue on with this list. These allegations, all these lawsuits. Anyway, you get the idea. If it was just 2 or 3, maybe you could say, oh, it's people trying to make a quick dollar. But there are many allegations, and police have been running this investigation for some time, and it seems that some of these allegations are turning into more than just allegations. People are starting to open up about the life Sean P. Diddy Combs has led, and how people with money like he has can just do anything they want, which in some ways is true, until you take it too far, via Jeffrey Epstein or Harvey Weinstein or Art Kelly. And now we get to see how things will play out for P. Diddy. Now, I want to be clear, Diddy has not been charged with a crime yet. And until now, no one is really sure even where he is, which of course adds to the intrigue. But I'm sure the next week there's going to be an all-out play somehow of this whole thing. And if we get to yet again see another rich and famous guy end up in jail. Goodness, this is Eric Lecain. What a world we live in. Let's get to a little climate science news if we can now. Mount Everest. It's the mountain that you gotta climb. Well, you gotta climb if you're a mountain climber. Truly, if you want to be called a mountain climber, you must climb Mount Everest. Now, I've done several stories on Mount Everest, including the one in which officials at the mountain said the mountain is becoming a trash dump. All the climbers were just leaving their trash on the mountain, and where does all that trash go? Well, nowhere. Just sits there for years and years. So there became a law that if you take trash up, you have to bring it back down. But now, there's a different problem. The mountain is starting to stink. But it's not from the trash. It's from the poop. There are no bathrooms beyond the base camp, so if you gotta go out in the cold. The problem is, at that height, there's just no way to bury it because the ground is frozen and it's so cold that it just never goes away. It can just stay there for a long, long, long time. So now with many climbers going up to the mountain, there's just poop everywhere. because at these temperatures, it just doesn't degrade. And according to the Nepal officials, this is just not acceptable anymore because it erodes the image of the Great Mountain. Right now, they are estimating that 3 tons of number 2 is currently up on the base camp, above the base camp. And one of the trails that you go up there is now have a new nickname. It's called the Open Toilet. So a new law is going into effect. Before you begin your final ascent, you are required to buy poop bags, which are numbered. When you return, you must turn in your bags with all your extras. The bags contain chemicals and powders which will solidify, and what ends up in it will be largely completely odorless. Each climber will get 2 bags to last their 2-week climb. I'm assuming more bags for heftier climbers, although I didn't find any data on that. Now, there has been problems in the past of getting people to properly implement the rules when climbing. There are supposed to be a liaison officer to make sure that everyone follows the rule, but sometimes those guys don't even show up. Also, people have been known to climb without a permit, which is not allowed. But this will all change now. New officials will be there on the mountains to make sure everyone adheres to the rules, or you will forfeit your permit and will not be allowed to climb. And this goes up to another issue on the mountain, permits. Some people are starting to worry that too many permits are being issued on the mountain. In 2023, 12 people died on the mountain and 5 are still missing, and they are presumed dead. This will be the highest number of climber deaths in history on Everest. And why are they dying? Well, some are from falls, but many are just dying from pulmonary edema, altitude sickness. Now, speaking from experience, when you get altitude sickness, you almost kind of want to die. It is not very pleasant. You can't catch your breath and your head feels like it's going to explode. One of the main reasons you get this is too much time on the mountain. And this is caused by one of the biggest issues, traffic. Sometimes there are very short windows of time that you can climb, so many end up going up the mountain together, multiple groups together. In that group, there might be older people trying to do a once-in-a-lifetime trek, or inexperienced climbers who don't know how to tie correct knots, or just rich people that are not in shape to make the climb, but look at it as a vacation experience. The problem is, if the general public is allowed to get a permit just to fulfill a fantasy without having the necessary training, there are going to be more and more accidents. And the other issue is it's not always the tourists that are getting into trouble. Some of the times it's the guides that bring them there who are having accidents, trying to keep their clients safe. Humans can't survive at those heights, so you must bring oxygen. However, how much oxygen can you carry? And there's another issue that's being blamed on the huge uptick in deaths on the mountain. Climate change. The Nepal government is recording much colder than normal temperatures on the mountain. This makes decisions very difficult. People pay a lot of money to make a climb. They get to the mountain, and then the decision is made, maybe not to climb. So they can either leave or they can wait. But waiting at that altitude can make you very weak. So in any case, just like diving to the bottom of the ocean in a small sub made out of carbon fiber, climbing to the highest peak is not a place humans should be. Why can't we just look at the beauty of nature at our level and leave it at that? Sometimes nature, just doesn't want us around, especially when we poop on it. This is Eric Lecain here on the World News Jam on DZRJ and RJTV, wishing everyone a happy Easter. Thank you so much for spending it with us. So for all of us here at the Jam, be safe out there. We'll see you next week.